Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this City Planning Committee meeting for the 15th of February. We have a full committee tonight. We have Alderman Briscoe, Councillor Harvey, Alderman Barakis, Councillor Dutta and Councillor Coates, and myself, Councillor Burnett. We're recording the open portion of this meeting, so welcome to anybody in the audience at home. Item 1 is, so no need to co-opt anybody, we have no apologies. Can I ask Councillor Dutta that we confirm the minutes? Thank you. Those in favour? Aye. Those against? Item is carried. Consideration of supplementary items. We don't have any indications of pecuniary and conflicts of interest. No conflicts or pecuniaries declared. Item 5, transfer of agenda items. No transfers. Item 6, planning authority items. We'll hear consideration of items of deputations. Have somebody move that. Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Those in favour? Aye. Those against? Items carried. Item 7, we're acting as a planning authority, and we'll go to 7.1.1, which is 35 Melville Street, Hobart, and we'll hear from Representative Mr Wayne Priddle. So Wayne, would you like to come to the table, please? Thank you.
I've just got 5 minutes, haven't I?
Yes, you have. Take a seat, yes. And you have 5 minutes to address the committee with your concerns, and then the committee will ask questions if they have any. Thank you.
Good evening. I represent the majority of residents at 40 Brisbane Street, a community housing complex comprising 35 households, which is approximately 60 adults and 15 young children. The precinct of the building, in combination with the University Accommodation Towers, is the highest density population area in Hobart. No consultation with the developer has occurred to date. The proposed development at the back of 35 Melville Street will adversely affect our residential amenity in the following ways: noise, artificial light pollution, privacy and visual quality. Any approval must be subject to the following conditions. PLN 6, operating hours of the proposed outdoor bar area must be restricted to 9 p.m, closing 7 days. What sort of live entertainment is planned? Council needs to clarify this. A barrier wall or screen must be built on the Brisbane Street side of the outdoor bar to provide privacy and reduce noise impacts. Some of you who have visited have seen just how overlooked our building is of the bar. There seems to be a discrepancy between what the developer has said on the public record and the development plans. Council needs to clarify what specifically is planned for that outdoor enclosed area. Heritage 20, the area at the back of the proposed development, car park, must be included in landscape plans for the site. At least 6 quick-growing advanced trees must be planted to provide a buffer zone with 40 Brisbane Street and ensure privacy and visual quality of the outlook from households at 40 Brisbane Street is preserved. Garbage bins and other waste must be concealed in an enclosed area or screened to avoid unsightly views. We are seeking conditions rather than words of assurance, because only conditions will result in appropriate action and compliance measures to ensure that our residential amenity is maintained. Council must set the right balance between residential amenity and commercial interests.
Thank you.
Is that 5 minutes?
Oh, it's less than 5 minutes, I think, but that's fine. You don't have to go to 5 minutes. We'll start with you, Councillor Dutta, then to Alderman Briscoe. Councillor Dutta.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question. I take it that there hasn't been any consultation with the developer. Would you be happy if this was deferred for negotiation and discussion with the developer?
I'm always happy to talk to people, but what we're seeking are actually conditions that can be, to have compliance. I mean, what I might agree with might not be backed up by the council. But I am happy to talk. I mean,
Any further questions, Councillor Dutta? Alderman Briscoe?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So you're seeking screening at the rear, is that right?
screening of the outdoor bar area that faces Brisbane Street, or the Brisbane Street complex.
And the second, you want a change in the opening hours?
I'm sorry?
Change in the opening hours, what's been suggested?
Yes.
So what is the times you're suggesting?
We're seeking a 9 p.m. closure of that outdoor area because of the large number of young children in the building. So the current midnight is not family friendly.
Right, okay. So it's always confusing when the officers have put 12 a.m. I keep thinking, is that noon or is that that's midnight? Anyway, so you're saying you take it from midnight back to 9 p.m.
Yes.
Yes. So they're the only two things, apart from the rubbish, enclosure of rubbish bins, they're the only three things?
The other major one was advanced trees, at least 6, to create a buffer zone and between the properties and to make sure that privacy is actually ensured, because our units look directly onto that area at the moment.
Right, so mature trees, would that affect your sunlight or the applicant's
No,
sunlight?
it would not.
Okay. We'll certainly ask those questions of the applicant in a moment. Yeah, thank you very much.
Any further questions? Mr. Priddle, so you, when I met with you, you said that you hadn't had any discussions with the applicant. So if the applicant were willing to have conciliation discussions, you would be willing to meet with them and keen to meet with them?
Yes, I am, but the conditions I've outlined are important. So,
and that may be that
I'm not sure what else we would get from that consultation.
Yep. Okay. Well, sometimes consultation is sometimes a little bit of negotiation. So.
Well, as I say, I'm willing to do that.
Yes.
But,
right. Thank you.
Okay. There needs to be some clarity about what would be achieved by that.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
To what council might determine.
Thank you. And what sort of expectation do you have relating to the noise and noise levels? What's your interpretation of what this might mean, this application might mean in relation to noise?
Well, certainly the resident, because it's community housing, we have a number of residents who are elderly or have disabilities. Bedtime for most of the people in the building is 8 o'clock, including myself. To have noise in the neighbourhood, or the close neighbourhood, beyond 9 o'clock would disrupt people's lives unacceptably. There are also shift workers in the building as well who have very low income, but they need to have their rest as well. So I guess in terms of what we're concerned about is that most of the residents have actually managed to get functionality in their lives, and having been kept up past their normal bedtime could actually throw them sideways and cause all sorts of issues for them.
All right. Thank you. I see your point. Okay, so thank you. If you'd like to take your seat again, and we'll hear from the applicant.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Do we have to do any COVID type things? Just one moment, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Banks. Now I'll call Mr. Derek Rolls and Mr. Guy Dan. If you'd like to come, you can both come up if you'd like. Thank you. Thanks for your time today and your application. Now, you've heard the concerns raised, and I think, Derek, we had a conversation today. So,
correct, yeah.
Anyway, if you can respond to some of the concerns and perhaps tell us a bit more as to your application.
So, I guess
you.
the biggest concern is obviously with the garden bar. Now that will be fully screened, so that won't be viewable at all from the units. There's already a fence that runs around the outside that continues right down the side of the building, and that'll be over 6 foot tall, so you actually won't have any visibility into the garden bar. There's obviously also a roof structure on top of it. We've already got closing time for the garden bar down at 10 p.m. Obviously inside's still 12 a.m. and they're the times, they're within the restrictions that we've got there, so that's what we really want to stick with. The waste management, the bins and stuff, that'll all be screened as per, the JSA are doing all our work there, so they'll have something in place for that.
Sorry, a waste management plan will be put in place.
There's already trees and stuff along the outside of the garden bar. That's the idea of the garden bar. That's the theme we're trying to get out there. So that'll be run around on the inside of our screening. So there really will be no visibility inside or for the guys to be able to look outside as well.
The actual structure itself that's going to be built will have soundproof cladding installed inside it. So that'll cut the noise down a lot as well. And our audio-visual tech is installing a dB meter in our outside bar, so we'll be able to monitor that.
As I said, we really want to work together with the community. We're not here to upset everybody, but we think we have met all the requirements as per the council recommendation. So I guess that's pretty much where we're at, aren't we?
So, thank you. So, just can you just describe the actual beer garden, which is more of a car park at the moment?
Yeah.
Is that enclosed?
It's fenced. So when you're sitting in it, you won't be able to see out at all. The fences will be quite high. It's actually dug in a little bit compared to the outside car park, so it's already that far in the ground, if that makes sense. And then there'll be a little fence on top of that, and it'll have an opening roof structure on it. So that's Tasmania. 90% of the time, it's going to be closed.
So just again, sorry, I didn't quite understand. So is it outside or is it an internal?
It is outside, yes, but it's about as enclosed as you can make an outside area, if that makes sense.
The structure itself we will be building will be additional to the already existing building. It will be built in the car park. However, the term garden bar itself refers more to the feel of it, not actual outside in the garden, where it will have a fully enclosed roof structure, which will only open during the day on a nice sunny day, and solid walls enclosing it around the outside.
What sort of distance is it away from the back fence?
So the nearest unit would be about 30 metres, and as far as I'm aware, that's actually a common area. The closest building at Brisbane Street as it is.
So you have parking against the back fence? Sorry, I'm just
so I suppose that's something
here.
else actually I want to run through. So there is no patrons that can get into the rear car park. It's only for staff. All entry is via Melville Street. That's the only way into the property. They've got to come in through the building and then they enter into the garden bar. So, and then it's from the back of the garden bar to the fence. Our boundary is 20 metres, and then you've got another few metres to the actual building itself.
And as far as lighting goes, Alderman Briscoe, I'll get to you in a moment. I'm just I need to sort this out for myself in the first instance. But so just as far as lighting goes and any sort of light attenuation.
There'll be nothing extruding the building, if you know what I mean. There'll be no, it's all, enclosed. There'll be no different to what sort of is there, or there's, a 24-hour gym next door that's probably closer to the units than what we are. There'd be,
So do you have lighting on the fence in the car park, or?
There might be for staff, I'm not sure.
There's
actually,
already existing lighting.
They'd have to be for the car park,
in the car park and the surrounding properties, which provides more than enough.
Thank you. Now, Alderman Briscoe, you had some questions?
Thank you. Just to clarify, I think you clarified some of the issues that were raised by the representative, and I think maybe that person might be reassured. So if we change the conditions that are reflected in the planning permit to 10 p.m. for the garden, that's what you're going to work?
I think that's already what it should be down as, mate.
We've already had our...
PLN 6 indicates 10 a.m. to 12 a.m.
For the garden bar and the cocktail bar, there should be two separate times.
The lounge, it's called the lounge, 5 p.m. to 12 a.m. And the garden here and PLN 6 is 10 a.m. to 12 a.m. So really, so if we reflect what you just said to be 10...
garden bar where we're going to go 10 p.m. I'm sure, I thought that was what we had in there, but... Maybe we've...
So both weekdays and weekends?
Yeah, correct.
The same number?
Yeah, the same number.
So
as I said, we're trying to work in the community, but we obviously also need to... It's also a business. We also need to make...
Well, I understand why it needs that sort of... But inside, we keep it at 12 midnight?
Yes, correct. Inside 12 midnight,
Okay, so we might have to change that on the recommendation if the committee is going to approve it. Thank you for that.
Further questions? Councillor Dutta.
Thank you, Chair, through you. Would you consider 9 o'clock closing?
No, mate. No, to be honest, I think we're already being quite fair with what we're doing. We're still well within, the regulations, and it still is a commercial zone. We're really trying to work with the community, but obviously it also needs to be a viable business for us to be able to open and bring it to the city.
Just one further question, Chair. The fact that you have a lounge as well, and that will open till midnight, won't that allow for people from the garden to flow into the lounge, for business purposes, if you wanted to?
Yeah, absolutely, it would, But at this stage, mate, I'd still be saying...
If the venue inside is already at capacity and we've got a garden bar full of customers, but at 10 o'clock they'll have to leave as it is. We can't overfill the venue with current COVID restrictions. We definitely can't.
We need as much sort of space as we can get, really.
Councillor Harvey.
Could you tell me the capacity of both the bar and the outdoor area?
110 for inside, including the front deck, and then 90 to 95. We haven't quite finalised our tables yet, so it's around the 90-95 mark for the garden bar. Okay, and the garden bar, the layout will be tables and chairs rather than benches?
Low tables and chairs and half a dozen high tables,
And just explain again how that will be enclosed. So you've said it'll be dug down?
Yep, correct. So it's basically as per the plan there. You can see there's a block wall that'll run right around the outside. Obviously, if you've seen the ground at the moment, it's on a bit of a slope. We don't want any steps there, so we're going to dig it all level from.
What page is that plan on?
Is there a side view there somewhere, guys?
Can't see a side view.
Yeah, because
There's no cross section of the back.
I can't recall seeing how that outdoor bar was designed.
That might have been in our actual.
I don't think there's
No.
section.
So Plan A 104 page it is. Maybe
it's not in
the
there.
cross section.
No, there's no cross section there. So that's the idea, mate. It goes from sort of, you step out of the building, it'll be level all the way through, by the time you get to the back, it's almost 500 below the current car park that's there. So there'll be a block wall, retaining wall all the way around the outside of the building. Then there'll be shrubbery, trees put on top of that, and on the outside there'll be a nice timber, screening all the way around.
Yeah, because this didn't come through in the plan, so I had no idea what your outdoor bar was going to look like.
What's it called, a CAD? We've had a CAD drawing done up, but I didn't realise JSA hadn't.
Is there any chance we could get that, just so I know, well, before next Monday, because this will be going to council, and I'd like to know what we're talking about.
Any further questions?
Just sticking with the outdoor side, because that's probably the biggest concern for the neighbours with light and noise coming from that. So you're saying that it will be insulated, but there will still be an open section at the top and then a roof on that.
Yeah.
Have you thought about putting blinds or something on that open section to try and mitigate the sound a bit more?
It is a blind system at the moment, but as I said, once it in the middle of, I mean, obviously it's not going to be open over night time. It's Tasmania sort of thing. That'll open up during the day completely, but it completely roll is shut overnight.
And that goes over the sides as well? Because this is really annoying, because I have no idea what you're talking about, because we don't have the plans.
Completely enclosed, 24/7. They're a permanent structure, and the roof structure, part of it can be opened, which will be for daytime use.
Yeah. Okay, well, it's just tricky to sign something off here, or to agree to something without knowing what exactly it looks like.
But we know now.
No, we don't.
We know that we've got a description. Yep.
Just in relation to smoking areas, are you likely to
There'll be
have...
none. We're not going to have any smoking at the venue at all. It's it's obviously.
So no smoking?
No.
So we
There'll
can
be no
condition
smoke.
that as well, or we can advice clause that if we need to? Yep, thank you.
That's what it's item. We don't want smoking on the venue. It's.
Well, I think that's sometimes it can be quite problematic for neighbours, especially in living arrangements. Any further questions? Now, as we discussed, if required, I mean, we've got a week to sort any things out, and perhaps the conditions will be fine for both parties once we come to that. But in the event that we don't, are you able to extend the expiry?
Look, I thought about that after speaking today. I'm not really in a position to. I do need to get some answers on this. Obviously, there's a lot of money sort of invested in the thing, and I need to know, which direction it's heading, I guess. Unfortunately, I don't really want to drag it out.
Oh, that's a shame because,
we're happy to work in with, as I said, I'm happy to consult. Don't get me wrong, I'm happy to consult and work out and come up with things, but...
okay, so if we need to over the course of the...
100%.
Sorry, if I can finish.
Yeah, sorry.
If I can just ask, so over the course of the next week, between now and the council meeting, you'd be happy to talk to council officers and perhaps the representatives?
Absolutely.
Great, thank you. All right, so if you'd like to take your seat, thank you very much. Oh, did you have a question?
No. I was going to kick off the debate. Sorry.
Thank you.
Jumped the gun a little bit.
Yes, Barakis.
Thank you, Chair. Look, I'm happy to kick debate off and move the recommendations on this. I imagine there'll be some suggested conditions that'll pop up. That's probably where the discussion, I think, will be held. But I think, look, ultimately this is something that I think more or less complies with everything that they're asked to comply with as far as the regulations and as far as the planning scheme. I'll note on page 56 of the report that given the zone, given the fact that it's in the CBD, they're effectively completely compliant with the noise restrictions, the little amount of noise restrictions that there are, and then if anything, they actually go above and beyond what is required of them under the scheme. So look, I think this is a pretty simple one, I think, for us to approve. But I think if they're happy to make a few compromises for the sake of keeping the neighbours happy, then I think that's something we should definitely look at. Because if they're happy to do it and makes the life easier for the residents, then I think that's a good thing. So I'll kick it off there.
Okay, thank you, Alderman Barakis, for moving the original motion. Alderman Briscoe.
Yes, look, as discussed a moment ago, the applicant suggested that they were going to be intending to do 10 a.m. for the garden area, Monday to Sunday. In other words, so I wonder if Alderman Barakis would just accept that as a change to condition 6 or PLN 6.
10 p.m.
So it's 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. In other words, it's taking it back from midnight to 10 p.m. 2 hours, both Monday to Thursday and Friday to Sunday. Would that be okay for you to
Of
accept?
course, I only left that to you because I thought you were going to move.
Yeah, that's right.
You were going to move a couple of conditions. If that was the only one.
No, that's one.
No, I'm happy to
Right.
accept that.
I suppose I've been reassured by the applicant about the screening. The screening seems very adequate for the site, permanent walls, and the roof that could, at times could be, during the day, could be opened. I can't see in an inner city environment that this is, that the applicant has told us that it wouldn't be an issue. The only thing I would probably at this stage add in as well, if it's okay with the Alderman Barakis, is a condition about, or a condition or advice that a contact phone number is given to the residents if there is any issues that arise. After hours number. It would, I'll get advice through you, Chair. Would that be suitable for a condition or for advice?
Ms. Lobey?
Thank you, Chair. That would certainly be appropriate as an advice.
Okay. No, I think that's one way that I know there's the fears of the neighbours that we've heard from their representations, that they think there's going to be a continuous stream of complaints. Knowing these, so if we have an advice clause to suggest that a number, after hours number, is given to the residents, so they can contact the appropriate people to address any issues that arise. Now, I imagine the applicant, I don't know whether he or his colleagues are going to be the operator of this venue, but if there are too many complaints, and there's the licensing laws that kick in as well, that you'd have to apply for a licence, and if there are complaints when you renew that licence, then that would have to be considered as well. The noise issue, again, there's environmental laws, and the applicant has assured us that there's going to be a noise meter there, or decibel meter, and they are aware of there are conditions about environmental noise. So I don't think we need an extra condition for that. But is there advice? Is there advice about environmental? Right.
There is advice in there about noise.
What page is it? Councillor Harvey?
Towards the end of
Advice?
of the conditions.
Again, perhaps Ms Avery might be able to point that out in a moment. So we've heard over the years similar applications have raised similar fears with the neighbours, and to my knowledge, none of them have actually been realised. The fears have been realised. So all I can say is, whilst it must be the residents or the representatives against this proposal must be reassured that it's a change in use to a neighbouring property, but there are enough built-in safeguards, we believe, that if it gets approval tonight and the council, then I think the fears will not be come to fruition.
Thanks, Alderman Briscoe. Councillor Dutta.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to move a foreshadowed motion that this be deferred.
Yeah, anyway, go on.
Yeah, you know,
So
the fact that...
procedural motion.
It's a procedural motion,
Procedural,
so perhaps,
sorry, my
perhaps if
apologies.
you
Yes.
have a discussion,
Yeah.
and then we'll talk
Okay.
about
All right.
any changes later.
Thank you. No, my concern is that both parties here are willing to have a chat, and they might be able to negotiate on one or two other things. Now, I understand fully the issue with regards to noise and lighting. The issue of privacy with the trees, I don't know if we have taken into consideration the advanced trees that was mentioned, and also the timing has been taken into consideration, which is good. But I'm just wanting to suggest that the fact that both parties are willing to meet, this might help in the situation before the council meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Harvey?
Yes, I'd still like to see, and it appears that they're available, that's the plans for the outdoor beer garden, because I'm still uncomfortable about voting for something that I don't know what it looks like. And you've described it to me, but I would like those plans to be circulated before council meeting, if they're available.
Councillor Harvey, on page 89, you get a cross-section of the back part of the place. I don't know if that's enough for you. It's the proposed northwest elevation. So you see the side sort of locker area, and then the planting to the left, which shows the sort of lines, that cross-section of the beer garden. Can you see that in the...
Yeah, but that
doesn't give you enough...
Well, it doesn't show me what material. There's a doorway I can see, but it doesn't... Firstly, it's in microscopic writing, so, you know...
You can expand using...
You can expand it, yep. I was looking for the plans in the...
Here, I have a look at the plans.
them.
Here you are.
No, but I'd still like to see what that material is and whether it's a plastic wall. You know, do you have further plans for the garden?
You can't ask questions.
Or is this
through
it?
the chair.
Yeah, through the chair.
But the chair normally doesn't allow it.
Is there any other
I
plans
think
available?
They did say that they would get plans between now and the start of the council meeting. So, is there any other questions or comments?
And the only other comment is with regard to landscaping and whether it is possible or not to have trees across the boundary fence with the neighbours.
Zadie?
Mature trees.
Through you, Chair, given the controls which have already, or the conditions that have already been imposed in the sense of screening the back garden, I'm not sure that there's sufficient room for the planning scheme to prompt that specific condition, but if the developer was willing to entertain that, then it could certainly be added to the permit.
So, okay, yeah, because we're told there's screening between the beer garden and the car park. But again, I can't see that in these plans.
On page 84. Quite clear.
84? So that's an aerial view?
Yep, looking down, plan view.
Yeah. It's a little bit of guesswork, isn't it?
Yeah,
as often this is. We don't have any active amendments. Is there an amendment you would like to make in relation to those advice?
Well, I'd like to know whether, well, it's up to if there's going to be a discussion during the week, then I'll leave it up to the developer to come up with a solution that will help the neighbours with their request to put screening across that back fence. Because if we can't condition it, then it's up to negotiation between the parties.
Well, if you have it as an advice clause, often that gives a clear indication as to what
All right.
what
Well,
is expected.
I'll put the advice in that screening across the back fence, mature trees across the back fence, be given as advice.
Thank you. Did you want to accept that in?
If that's advice, I'm happy to accept that in.
Thank you. All right. Councillor Coates.
Thank you, Chair. Look, a question, only applicants listening in, probably through yourself to Ms Aby, but it's more of a technical nature. I'm noting we're moving for, if it gets through, for specific opening hours for the garden bar separate to the lounge bar. If, in the course of time, for example, I'm noting that the lounge, the inside one's only going to be opening at 1 PM on the weekends, if the applicants were to decide, look, it's going really successful and they want to line up that with the outside area of a garden bar to move it to 11, What's the process in terms of coming back to council? Do we have to go through the whole application process again to get that changed?
Chair, a new application would be required, but and it would need to be considered because the use is discretionary. But in terms of hours, up until 12 midnight, that would satisfy the acceptable solution. So,
Yep.
so it is most likely that a permit would be granted.
Well, the reason I raise it, I guess, is even though they obviously only intend to open from 1 p.m. in the afternoon, between now and next week, maybe it might be worthwhile getting the permit to marry up the hours, especially considering the residents' concerns about people being outside. Might be a good thing to incentivise people being inside the building, but that's just my comment from reading it. But look, I'm in favour of the application. Having read the report and the officer's recommendations, I feel that this fits the planning scheme ultimately, and even if we were to refuse it, the city would lose on appeal, in my opinion. So look, I hear the concerns of the residents, but ultimately it's zoned in a city commercial. To my mind, this is an allowable use, and look, it is comforting to hear that there is going to be quite a lot of enclosure around that beer garden. It's obviously lovely to see the trees that are marked out clearly on the plan, so it's not just something they're saying, it's something that clearly from the images that we can see that not only are they planning it, but they're actively looking to do it. And I guess as well, we're not seeing this application where they're maximising the amount of built form on the space. They're actually keeping that car park at the back of the building, which, if you like, provides a buffer. So although the owner of that land has every right to develop it, I guess from a sense of intrusion on the neighbouring properties, there is obviously that natural buffer that exists in person. So look, from my point of view, I'll be supporting the officer's recommendations. Ultimately, it's an inner city commercial area where this sort of activity is allowed. So, yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Harvey?
Could I just point out to Councillor Coates that the landscaping, as per the plan, there's a condition in. I can't find the page now, but there's a condition with regard to providing a landscaping plan. Can we find that? What's the page there?
Well,
so those plants...
Figure 6 points it out, as far as I'm concerned. It's the proposed ground floor site plan, and it shows... But
there's a condition that the existing landscaping plan was inadequate and that would need to be resubmitted, I think, as I read.
Thank you. Page 67, okay.
7, what did you say?
HER 20 or S3? HER 20. Okay. All right. All work required must be undertaken in accordance with the approved landscaping plan. Okay. Any further comments? Alderman Barakis?
Yeah, Chair, just to double check. I don't think it was ever asked if I was to accept the second suggestion put by Alderman Briscoe about the contact, but I'm happy to include that in.
About the compact?
Being a contact point for complaints, I'm happy to accept it. I think that's completely reasonable, and I think I'll just want to echo what Councillor Coates said. I think if this was happening, in or close to a residential area, I think we'd probably be having a very different discussion, but this is in the CBD, we need to assess that accordingly. And I wouldn't be supporting any deferrals because I think that this is something that's ultimately compliant, and what's being put forward, I think, actually goes further than what they're required to do by letter of the legislation, which is a good thing. That they're going above and beyond. I think that's the sign of a good neighbour. But and if it wasn't for the applicants saying that they were happy to accept the 10 p.m. restrictions, I wouldn't have been supporting that either. But given that they're happy to make that compromise, I'm happy to support that. So.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Abbey, the screening of bins. I can't determine, or could you show me where on the plans the bins are meant to be?
There's a condition which requires ongoing waste management to be further details to be provided to the council, which I believe that the condition doesn't specifically mention screening, although we could include that as a specific requirement.
I think so. Alderman Baracus, are you happy to have screening of waste bins as part of that condition?
Yep.
Thank you. Right. Now just in relation to any sort of light flow from the beer garden. Obviously, that's presumably a clear plastic. And also from the car park, presumably there'll be security lights. How can we condition those so that there isn't too much flow, light spillage?
Thank you, Chair. There is already an advice clause requesting that noise be minimised and light spill be controlled. Given that the hours do fit within the acceptable solution, it is difficult to condition those specific requirements.
Right, thank you. All right. I think this is a situation where we have development which is sympathetic in some ways to its requirements. It's set back from a neighbour's fence by some 20 metres, did you say? 25 metres. But there are obviously some concerns with some of the particular experiences or past experiences of neighbours that Mr Priddle has raised, and this is social housing. It is also an issue that will come up from time and time again, I think, as we get more pressures of living in the city. Now, living next to an entertainment venue is not always the most sympathetic to having a really good sort of residential neighbourhood, but this isn't a residential neighbourhood. So all of the things that Alderman Baracus has said may well be, and Councillor Coates before him actually said, I suppose, may be the situation for commercial areas, but we will get this friction. And so as a planning authority, we need to be maintaining what the scheme suggests, but also where possible, where we have applicants who are sensitive to those needs as well as wanting to be good neighbours in the area, then we've got good outcomes. It is likely, I think, that over the course of the week there may be some toing and froing just to see if what the neighbours and what the applicants are putting forward, whether there can be some common ground reached. So I thank both parties for doing that, and of course council staff are there to help as well. Now, Councillor Dutta, did you still want to try and defer this, or do you feel that something can occur during the course of the week?
Thank you, Chair. I'll leave it as that, your last concluding remarks. Hopefully that some goodwill will occur between the two parties.
All right, thank you. All right, so we're all sure of the motion as amended and accepted in by Alderman Baracus? Okay, so I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Aye. Aye. Those against? So that's carried unanimously, and it will go to full council next week. So if there needs to be any discussion, please contact the council officers, Ms Abbey in particular. Thank you. We move now to item 7.1.2, which is 14 Goulburn Street, Hobart, signage and fencing. Somebody move the item, please.
Chairman,
sorry?
Before we move the item, just a few questions. We did have a quite a detailed email from the applicant. Is Ms Avery aware of that?
No, I haven't seen anything.
All right. We're considering Goulburn Street.
Thank you.
Where there was pretty strong evidence that a sign was there previously, or a sign is there previously, but the actual wording has been changed. Would the officer like to comment about that?
Ms Abbey?
There are previous approvals in relation to this. I'm not, to be honest, I'm not sure about the sign. The sign itself is, I understood, to be part of enforcement action, which was taken after illegal works, but certainly the fences down the sides had not been approved, but you've caught me unawares.
All right. Look, I could certainly pass on the email, but it certainly has all the hallmarks that there is almost every argument in this planning refusal that's been countered by really strong evidence to suggest otherwise. So I'm just trying to find the email that Mr. West, the applicant sent. And
We move on to somebody else whilst you find that?
yes, I'm happy.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Harvey?
Yeah, Chair, I was also concerned about refusing this based on that email. It appears the neighbours have exactly the same parking configuration, which is 2 cars in the front yard and access down the sideway. So if this application is refused, then how does that impact on the neighbours who are doing exactly the same thing? So I found it quite challenging to work out why we've rejected this. There's no room to manoeuvre cars on either of these sites, and the cars drive directly into the driveway. So rarely do I overturn the officer's recommendation or vote against or argue against it, but I'm going to argue against the officer's recommendation today and move for approval, because I think it just doesn't seem to make sense that we would reject this application. And I drove past today and had a look at it, and the only issue would be I'd prefer to see small cars parked in the front, but there's all sorts of other parking arrangements in Hobart where people drive in and reverse out of driveways. And if that's the issue, then I don't think it's strong enough to reject this proposal. So I just don't get why it was rejected from both the performance criteria and the acceptable solutions.
So what are your conditions for approval?
Well, I don't have any conditions other than I think it does meet the acceptable the performance criteria.
Can I help here? Look, I haven't got Ms Avery's email address, but I think this is one of these things that the officers should look at each of these points and have an argument, because we've got an email that was sent last night to us, as Councillor Harvey has just said. He's thrown into doubt, and I think we need an answer to each of the queries that have been raised. For example, the sign is in place of an existing sign approved in 1987, so we can't reject a sign that's got existing use rights, I imagine. So I wonder if this is the case of deferring this to a special meeting prior to council and to give the officers a chance to have a look at that email.
I'll send this email to you now,
Yeah.
to Ms Avey now, and...
I'll just forward you a copy of that email.
All right.
Yeah,
So, Councillor
found it,
Coates,
yeah.
have you, or... Oh, okay.
One sent at 5:46 last night.
So
yeah.
before I take that deferral motion, I'll go to Councillor Dutta.
Thank you, Chair. Similarly, when I read that email, and especially the statements made that the statements were incorrect, and a number of factual evidence, I want an explanation to that as well. And I think the deferral motion would be supported. Thank you.
Alderman Barakis?
Thank you, Chair. I think we're all pretty much on the same page on this one. I would be inclined to support approval, but given that we don't have appropriate conditions in front of us, and it might help us to get some clarification on the situation, I'd support deferring it until.
Okay. All right. So in that case, what I'll do is take your deferral from Alderman Briscoe. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Items carried unanimously. So we'll have do we need a special before council?
Yes, it expires on the 27th of February.
Yeah.
I don't think
Okay.
it should take long.
No,
Chair.
probably not. Thank you. And we can have those conditions as well, and explanations from the things raised in that email. Thank you. 7 Ribbon Gum Court, Mount Melton, 7.1.3. I open the item for discussion.
I'm happy to move the recommendation to open the debate, if there's a debate.
Thank you. Thank you, Alderman Briscoe. Further discussion? Alderman Barakis.
Thank you, Chair. Look, I went to the site over the weekend, or on Friday, sorry, met with the neighbours, and there was some reasonably serious concerns about the way that it would be overshadowing their sort of private area and their living room effectively. And I'm just, because I know maybe it's the way that the neighbouring house was designed, but effectively what was being put, and even on the shadow diagrams that are included in the report, was that it would be, in winter, it would almost completely shade out their entire living area. Look, I don't want to refuse it, but I would have been interested to have been able to ask some questions of the applicant. But there's, it seems that, and one of the things that was put forward by the neighbour was, why do these 2 floors that are being built need to have ceilings higher than what's standard, given how close it is to the fence line and how far it is outside of the building envelope. So I wonder if I can get some feedback from Ms. Abbey on that. I'm just trying to figure out where I'm at on this.
Yes, likewise. Thank you. Ms Abbey?
Through you, Chair, the provision which analyses the impact on neighbouring amenities when a proposal is outside the building envelope focuses on certain criteria, one of which is overshadowing of internal living spaces which aren't bedrooms. And my understanding is that the bedrooms on the front property for Unit 1 on number 9, Ribbongum Court, the bedrooms are on the side which are going to be affected by the overshadowing rather than the living spaces which are on the southern side anyway. So the planner who assessed this formed the view that the impact of the overshadowing wasn't going to be significant given the internal layout of that building. The impact on the dwelling behind that was less dramatic. So I can see that it does look dramatic from the shadow diagrams, but it's the internal layout of the building which makes the difference to the assessment.
I think, and that was brought up when I visited the neighbour, and they did say, look, they acknowledged that their living area was on the other side of the house, but that the house was designed in a specific way to let the sun in through the house into the living area, and that would effectively block that out through the house regardless. So it's still, even though the living room's on the other side of that house, it was still shadowing. It was removing access to the sunlight by nature of the way the building was designed. And is that something that we can take into consideration, or?
Well, I mean,
effectively, it's shining through one window through the house into the other side of the house. Currently, not directly into that room from that window.
So I understand from what you're saying, the light comes through the bedrooms into the living space. Is that?
I feel like I didn't go into the house, but it's a skyline system, or there's a hallway that it's designed to have big windows to shine all the way through into the living area. But they did say it was designed specifically to let light in across the house.
Through you, Chair, that wasn't specifically mentioned by the assessing planner. The understanding was that the living space was on the south side and therefore unlikely to be significantly impacted. There are tribunal decisions about the times and the lengths that the overshadowing would be impacted, and I'm sure that was taken into account as part of the assessment as well.
Further discussion? Councillor Harvey.
Just to put my 2 bobs worth in, I also had issues with this, and looking at the front yard of the front unit, which is slightly more overshadowed by this development than it has been. And sunshine is a really important aspect of life. And as Alderman Barakis said, these houses were designed for passive solar gain, and that could be disrupted by this development. So how do you compromise someone's light and solar gain? How do you justify that when the neighbour decides they want to build something that probably doesn't necessarily fit the space, So I have concerns about this design as well. So I'll find it hard to support it here tonight unless it's a deferral pending some sort of consultation with the neighbours to see if they can get a better outcome. And we've often done that and have ended up with better outcomes, better design outcomes. So I would support a deferral pending a consultation process between the parties, if that's something we can do if there's time.
So perhaps we can have your question answered by Ms Obi in relation to overshadowing and impacts on neighbouring properties, particularly houses. Is that protected?
Yes, thank you, Chair. The scheme provisions breaks down the impact of amenity on neighbours into specific assessments. The first is...
Give us the pages and we'll follow you, please.
It's 6.7.4. I'll just find that on the agenda.
6.7.4, did you say? Page 308.
The proposal must not cause unreasonable loss of amenity by a reduction in sunlight to a habitable room, and as part of that was my comment that the habitable room, which is not a bedroom, is on the southern side of the property. It must not overshadowing private open space of a dwelling on an adjoining lot. The assessment regarding a vacant lot is obviously not relevant here, and there's an assessment of visual impacts which are relevant as well. And there's a final requirement that there must be separation on the dwellings which is compatible with prevailing dwellings or buildings in the prevailing area. So the key here is there a reduction in sunlight to a habitable room, which is unreasonable, and similarly with the overshadowing of the private open space.
Yeah, okay. Is it unreasonable? Well...
The assessing plan has formed a view that it wasn't for the reasons that I've stated. Also, the shadow diagrams are provided in the middle of winter. There's a recognition that for the balance, that's going to be the worst point in the year in terms of overshadowing. So for the rest of the year, it's going to be preferable. There's reference in here to the fact that, despite the fact that there's overshadowing, that there will still be times of the day for both the front and the rear property where there will still be sunlight. And that's the view which was formed by the assessing planner.
Further comments? Alderman Briscoe?
I notice the expiry date is the 1st of March. Does that give you time, if Alderman Harvey's going to defer it, time to come back to us and to council it?
Yeah, we can certainly add it straight on to the next round of meetings, and I can have discussions with the applicant in the meantime.
Will that be enough time for before council meeting? Oh, it's a committee decision.
Delegate.
Yeah, it's a committee decision.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it's going to be refused, but if we can get some modifications, yeah. So I'll be supporting, strangely enough, Councillor Harvey's deferral.
Thank you. Alderman Brakis.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Chair. And I think I'm just page 347. It's got the shadow diagrams, which shows the significant sort of change, and it's not normally on the one advocating on this side, but I think the deferral is a good idea. And can I also maybe suggest or request, if possible, that we get a copy or a understanding of the layout of the other house, so we can look at that, just so we can unlock, because I'm obviously myself and Councillor Harvey were talking about it, but I didn't go inside this house, so I can't articulate properly how the house is designed and the chambers. But it might be good to see that, so we kind of know exactly what the effect is there, and we can make a bit more of an educated decision on that. If we can include that on the deferral to get that information back, it might help us make a decision.
Thank you. Ms Obi, do you know if there was any proposal to have the upper bedroom on the other side, or was that ever considered, do you know?
I'm not...
On the other side of the block?
Or at the rear?
I'm not aware if there is actively considered by the applicant.
Well, I think any of those discussions which could ameliorate some of these concerns of the neighbours, I think would be good. I certainly was called by an anxious neighbour in relation to this, so I think if we can get a better outcome, then that would be of benefit to hopefully both parties. So if there's no further discussion, I'll put the motion for deferral moved by Councillor Harvey. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Items carried unanimously and will come back to us at the next committee meeting. Alrighty. 7.1.4 is 1A Fisher Avenue. Thank you. Any discussion or any particular concerns committee have in relation to this one? There are no representations.
And it's only before us, Chair, because of the reserve, is it? Or?
Okay, and it's our decision. All right. No discussion? Okay, I'll put that. Those in favour?
Right.
Those against, items carried. 343 Park Street, Newtown. Thank you, Alderman Barakis. Again, any discussion or any points that we need to consider here? Ms Abbey?
Chair, there were 2 representations, but this was supported at officer level by the Heritage team. It was also supported by the Tasmanian Heritage Commission. So it's my suggestion that the matter be approved tonight.
Through you, Chair, one of the representatives was about the condition of the sewerage system and whether or not the new the new lots would run through a system that goes through their property, and whether that would put additional pressure on a 100-year-old sewerage system. So I assume that's got nothing to do with this application.
Through you, Chair, that's correct. Any development application which would then articulate what requirements there were in terms of sewerage and water and all of those sorts of things would be subsequently considered.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'll be supporting this. I think if you're looking for a block of land that's suitable for 2 additional lots, this one has a road either side. But it was interesting reading the history of this building on the site, which was the toll house, which I didn't know about. But anyway, and there's a tree that's been conditioned to be kept as well, and so hopefully that doesn't suffer too much down the track. So happy to support this.
Thank you. Any further discussion? If not, did you move it, Alderman Barakis? Thank you. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against, items carried. Item 8.1, Delegated Decision Report for Planning. Can I have somebody move that, please? Thank you for noting, Alderman Briscoe. Any discussion? If not, I'll put that. Those in favour? Those against, items carried. Item 8.2 is the advertising report. Ms Abbey, is there anything that we need to take note of here? We haven't had any applications run out of time again?
No, we have not. Having said that, I've just noticed a date which needs to be extended before the next meeting. The most significant item on the list is the property listed at the start, which is 49 Mole Street, which is also known as 201 Macquarie Street, which is a significant proposal for 45 multiple dwellings and associated development with an estimated cost of $8 million. That one's on advertising and will be considered by UDAP tomorrow.
That's the old car yard, isn't it? No?
No.
It's down.
Used to be. Is that the one? No.
It's, do you know where the Migrant Resource Centre used to be on Mole Street?
Yep.
It's behind that. It's that block that runs right through to Macquarie Street.
Oh, yes. Yep.
Basically a car park now, isn't it, or something? Don't think there's any problem.
There's a building on there, isn't there? Or not?
No, it's car park.
Oh, it's just a car park, right. Okay, fair enough. Okay, any other ones?
And the
multiple dwellings at 41 Beaumont Street's interesting one.
well, the advertising's closed on that one, and there's only one representation,
Okay,
so that will be determined at delegation. 2 Cross Street is Sacred Heart School. There's a council application relating to 410 Elizabeth Street, which is next to on the corner of Swan Street.
Thank you.
And the hospital will be before the committee next round, the Newtown Hospital.
Right, thank you. Okay, so that's been moved by Alderman Briscoe. Those in favour? Those against? Items carried. Item 8.3, Building and Planning Stats. So, Alderman Barakis, sorry, I didn't quite catch that. Thank you. Discussion? No discussion. I'll put that. Those in favour? Those against? Item is carried. We come now to item 9, questions without notice. Any questions without notice? I have one, if I may, to you, Ms Abbey. In relation to the amenity of residents within the commercial area and CBD, is there likelihood that bar areas will be retained away from residential establishments and in zoned areas such as along Elizabeth Street?
I'll take that question on notice. Thank you.
All right. Any further questions without notice? No? Okay. Can I ask somebody move that we close this portion of the meeting? Thank you, Councillor Dutta. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? And I'll close this portion of the meeting and thank anybody who may be listening. The recording will now cease. Thank you.